My life? Well, I never knew my mum. She died of obstetrical hemorrhage when I was born. Severe bleeding. She lived long enough to hold me in her arms, look me in the eyes and say, Sam. Dad said the very last moments of her life was the happiest one, so at least she went out on a high. Dad was a drug addict when I was born. I only stayed with him for a few months before they shipped me into foster care. The first people that had me were actually arrested for kidnapping a child in the 80s. I was sent to an elderly couple after that, and I'm pretty sure they're the best parents I ever had. They didn't last long. Enid passed away in her sleep when I was 18 months, and Rex died of a broken heart soon after. I was sent to an upper-class couple after that and lived with Carlos and Anastasia for 8 years. Anastasia hated me from the start, all because Spot, her bunny rabbit, died of shock the day I arrived. It's hardly a toddler's fault rabbits have zero constitution. All the same, I was scorned by her for half my childhood. She was the least hands-on parent in the universe, and technically I think I was raised by Nintendo. My first words were Donkey Kong. I was homeschooled for those 8 years, and when I was 7, I'm pretty sure I topped the state in The Legend of Zelda. Carlos was an even worse parent than the Game Boy. He'd come to my room once a week to see if I died of malnutrition, stand awkwardly in the doorway, and after a while he'd shake my hand and run off like I was an old acquaintance he didn't want to talk to. Before my 10th birthday, Dad convinced the courts that he was off drugs and got custody of me. He was over the moon. I was put on a train to Arcadia Station, where he met me with a Labrador puppy named Lucky. Lucky was so excited to meet me, his new best friend, that he leapt right on top of me as soon as I arrived, except I was still on a moving train and the poor thing got minced. It was a fairly mixed reunion. A few days after moving into Dad's pokey flat, and he started to cough. At first it was just a little hack, but soon it turned into a gasp in and a choke out. Cancer got him when I was 10 years and 10 days. Off I went to another foster home. In less than 6 months, my new dads, Charles and Charlie, died in a car crash. But when my new mom died of a stroke at 27, I knew something was wrong with me. I relocated again and went to see a priest. I sat in one of those boxes. What would you like to confess, my child? Father, I think I'm possessed by the devil. A lot of people around me have gone to heaven, Father. My mom, my dad, the Charleses, the old couple, even Lucky and Spot. I'm not very good at math, but that many deaths seems very unlikely. How am I supposed to live if everyone around me goes to heaven, Father? Father? Hello? I sat in a pew and pretended not to know what was going on. I would have gotten away with it if the ambulance hadn't backed into my new foster parents' car and caused that horrible explosion. The next guy that had me is still alive today. He worked in a warehouse and was terribly fond of smoking marijuana. Smoked it every day when he got off work. I'm not sure how he was legally entitled to adopt, but I think he got someone from Gumtree.com to be his de facto partner during interviews. Damo and I barely had anything to do with each other. He was a reasonable parent, all things considered. He got me through school and into my own apartment. I moved in with 2 nerds I met playing World of Warcraft, but I was the only one that survived the fire. By the time I was living alone and working from home as a programmer, I was over it. What the hell was wrong with me? What evil spirit did I piss off to become the town death magnet? At 19, I decided to kill myself. I nailed a sturdy hook into the rafter, flung a rope over it, looked up how to make a noose on the internet. I slid it over my neck, closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and kicked the chair out from under me. There was a god-awful crack and the rafter came swinging down off the roof, into the fishbowl, sending Bowser Jr. out the window. Screw this, I said, and leapt out after him. I fell 4 stories and onto a little old lady. Poor Miss Bellevue. I staggered into the road, and the car that swerved to miss me finished the old dear off. My guilt at being the only one capable of surviving for more than 5 minutes tripled after that. I did everything I could to end myself. Did you know if you put a gun next to your head and pull the trigger, it's still possible to hit the wrong person? I jumped off a cliff, but a gust of wind blew me into a tree growing out the rock face. The helicopter that came to rescue me? I tried to drown myself, but ended up with a box jellyfish in my mouth. The guy that did CPR got stung and asphyxiated. I did everything I could think of. Explosives, exposure, electrocution. The only thing I succeeded in doing was becoming the first person to be blacklisted by emergency services. I gave up on trying to end myself after that and came up with a mission instead. If I couldn't own a pet or have a meaningful relationship, the least I could do is grow some flowers. I turned my unused garage space into a greenhouse and bought a stack of vibrant, healthy plants. I watered them every day, but one by one they wilted and died. I bought some more, watered them once, but they wilted too. I did everything I could think of, tried 100 different species, but nothing lasted past a fortnight. Not even the damned succulents. Succulents! I dug up a rose bush from my neighbour's garden and planted it in the front yard. The strata manager was furious when he knocked on my door, but fortunately he was on life support before he could speak to my real estate agent. I read horticulture magazines and tried everything I could. Water, fertilizer, sunlight, shade. I read one Stephen King, played one Mozart, but nothing worked. Pretty soon the mail stopped coming. They were running out of postmen. Then one day I came down the stairs and saw something miraculous. There was a bud, a sprout of green growing from one of the hundreds of empty pots. I was overjoyed. I wrote about it on the pot plant forums, and after a week I took a photo and sent it to Florafan 8. Florafan 8 told me it was marijuana. Marijuana? Oh, those damn teenagers! But wait. Damo was a pothead. My dad was a drug addict. I got into contact with some stoner kids from high school. We hung out and they didn't die. Ecstasy. You know what I mean. This was great. I could finally have a normal life. I could have a very slow, perpetually hungry cat. I could fall in love. Someone to say, honey, I'm home, and bake brainwaves for. It seemed a little unfair that the only thing that capable of surviving around me was most likely going to land me in jail. Why couldn't it be sunflowers? No one gets 3 to 6 months for growing sunflowers. Still, I decided it would be better to go somewhere where marijuana wasn't illegal. So I saved my money and bought a one-way ticket to Amsterdam. It was a good idea, I just should have put more thought into it. I was the only one that survived the crash. I caught the interest of someone in Homeland Security after that. Unbreakable Sam, he called me. You reckon you've tried to kill yourself 12 times and haven't succeeded? Ever thought of joining the army? And that's how I ended up here, in Afghanistan in the Special Forces, in the only regiment encouraged to get high while on duty. They call us the flowers on account of all the bud. All I have to do is walk through the desert and watch rifles misfiring or bombs randomly going off in nearby caves. I've been captured 4 times, but I always get out within a day or two. Sorry, pal. I tried to warn you. Not everyone gets dealt a winning hand in this life, but all things considered, I can't complain. I may not be destined for happiness, but at least I'm useful. That's cool. Useful works for me. It's not like I'm dying to be happy.